Call the meeting to order. Everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their holidays and Happy New Year. First order of business, Commissioner Evans, do we have any opening comments?
Ramblings. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're all in this together. Just a reminder, only questions or statements regarding an agenda item will be entertained under citizens to be heard at the top of the meeting. All other matters will be recognized during public comment at the end of the meeting. Out with the old. 2022 was a challenging year for everyone. Seems like we've been saying that every year here since January 2021. EMS will be discussing 2023 EMS services this evening, but I wanted to take a moment to thank the resident who reached out to me with concerns about our ability to provide quality health care and emergency services since Brandywine closed and Medic 93 was moved south. LED lights. We've recently approved replacing our current street lights with LEDs, and it's looking like we should be ready to install, hopefully within a couple of months. Of course, they'll be brighter and more efficient. Mainly, they'll reduce the hit on everyone's wallet. Zoning. We'll be discussing the zoning process tonight, but to be clear, there's nothing near ready for prime time. We've been granted a 6-month extension because getting it right is more important than getting it done quickly. This zoning will affect everything that happens in town for the next decade. These troubling times, unless the chief knows something I don't know, all quiet. Thank God. Happy to say the lion sleeps tonight. Cleanup time. Well, it's a new year, and I guess people have run out of parties and holiday events to occupy themselves. So they're using their extra time to sit on social media, creating issues that don't exist. One social media group has a thread about the outrageous increase in town sewer bills due to mismanagement. No one saw this coming, etc. One commenter even posted this on top of them just voting to raise our municipal tax 26%. I'm really happy to say that one resident on that thread spoke up to point out that there was no tax increase this year. It was last year, and we all know that was in response to Ida. Another social media page has a thread proclaiming that they were improperly billed an increased trash and sewer rate before it had been improved. Others enraged about their streetlight bill. It's like a feeding frenzy of confusion. Hey, anyone who's been paying attention knows I was a great complainer before I joined the board. But I always tried to check my facts and make sure I was right before stirring up the mob. People took 1/10 of the time they devote to trolling social media, use it to attend meetings, visit the website, the Facebook page, watch the online replays, or simply send an email question to any of these commissioners, they'd have clarity. There'd be less confusion and division in this township we call home. And let's spread goodness, everyone. Compassion, empathy, peace, and love. These are the greatest gifts any of us can give.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Before we go on to the next agenda, I would like to make a note that we did hold an executive session on January 4th for personnel reasons. Next, we have citizens to be heard. I will reach out here to the township building. None at this time. Ms. Denny, do we have in Zoom world?
None at this time.
Next on the agenda, Township Solicitor, Ms. Camp.
Thank you. There's a few ordinances I just want to go over. At the last meeting, I believe it was, on your agenda was to authorize a handicap parking space at 3717 Bungalow Glade. And at the time, I think I had indicated that I think that has to be done by ordinance, and we did double check that. You already have a chapter 149 in the town code that does have a designation and a location to identify handicap parking spaces within the township. The motor vehicle code does give you the authority to do that, and it does have to be done through ordinance. So I have prepared an ordinance, and I think we talked about potentially if there are other spaces within the township that you've already designated, making sure they're codified within this chapter. I don't know where that stands. Okay, so I mean, if this was a request of a resident, then I think we go ahead and, as an action item, the board should authorize advertisement. This is only a 7-day advertisement, so you could adopt it at your January 26th meeting.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if you want to do that now or under the ordinance part.
Yeah, which, I'm looking at the
So
list
this
here.
is amendment to chapter 149, specifically 149-28, and this would be to designate a handicap
Oh,
parking
the
space.
number 4.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions on this?
No, I'm very happy about it.
And no issues. Residents, any questions on this resolution? All right, easy enough. I think it's well deserved for the person. It'll definitely help them out. And you said, Ray, you're going to be looking around the township for other areas?
Yeah, we just have to research documents to see if there were.
Okay, sounds good. Entertain a motion to advertise. We're advertising for this. The ordinance amending chapter 149 of the County Code titled Vehicle and Traffic, section 149-28 titled Special Purpose Parking Zones to designate a handicap parking spot at the address of 3717 Bungalow Glade.
So moved.
So moved. Moved by Commissioner Evans, second by Commissioner Tindaro. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Motion's good, 5-0.
The second one is a cleanup ordinance. If you recall, there was a law that was passed that allowed taxpayers who did not receive the real estate tax bill to have their penalties waived. And the board adopted a resolution in 2022 to basically direct your tax collector to follow that state law. Your code is a little bit different. Most codes don't go into the penalties on real estate taxes, but you do in your chapter 141, which is your taxation chapter. You do specify what the penalties will be if the real estate taxes are not paid on time. So we felt it was important to make sure that that code section is amended through an ordinance to reflect the waivers that are permitted under that new Act 172, it was called, or I'm sorry, Act 57. So that's all this does. So there's one sentence added to your discount and penalty section under your real estate taxes. And again, it's just to reflect what the state law requires you to do. And I think it's important that, this is a codified ordinance in your code book. So somebody, searching in the code sees taxation, they'll recognize that this is something that they're entitled to, that you have followed the state law. So again, sort of a cleaning house ordinance, but I think it is something that should be advertised and adopted at your next meeting.
All right, Commissioners, any questions on this? Residents, any questions? Yeah, all right, clean cut. I will entertain a motion to advertise the ordinance amending chapter 141 of the County Code titled Taxation at section 141-67 titled Discounts, Penalties to Comply with Act 57 of 2022.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Tindaro. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's good, 5-0.
Thank you. So those will both be the actual public hearing on both of those can be held at your January 26th meeting. So you'll see those then. And then I'm sticking around for the draft zoning ordinance discussion.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have the Township Engineer.
Good evening, Commissioners and
Good evening.
staff.
Welcome.
I'm Carl Schmidt with Arrow. We have one short, brief item on the agenda. That is a motion for your consideration to adopt a PSA related to work on the, is it the Public Works building? For Arrow's involvement, this PSA, I believe, is focused on just some bidding services. There'll be a different contractor and different construction oversight. So the PSA specifically is on bidding service.
Okay, are you putting the bid together and
Yes.
advertising it? and-
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
And can we get some clarification on what's being done?
Sure. The Public Works garage, the primary garage where the office is, where the break room is, and where the smaller vehicles and the shop really is a metal roof that is, we're not even sure exactly how old it is. But it's been leaking for a couple years. We've put the last Band-Aid we put on it. We sent some guys up there and caulked it. So this year during the spring, we had some severe weather and literally it was leaking so bad, some of the lights were filling up with water. So we did have several contractors come in to give us kind of an estimate so we knew what to budget during the budget process. We did budget some amounts for that. And at this point, we just need, we were hoping to have Arrows, an outside agency, help us develop that bid spec a little bit. And to put it out to bid, we'll monitor the construction in-house. It's a fairly small roof. Between Huggins and myself, we'll be able to monitor the construction. So the cost, the PSA cost for them to develop that bid is about, I think, like 17% of what the anticipated cost of doing the work is.
Well, definitely a health issue. I take it. If the roof is leaking,
It's a safety, unless you want the building to burn down and we just build a new building, we could ignore it. But yeah, it turned out to be a pretty big safety issue.
Wow.
We were able to do a little bit more caulk to stop the immediate issue, but it's in bad shape.
Okay. And any internal work?
We have some internal work planned, but not part of this.
Okay.
The metal roof obviously completely replaced. That does include, we're hoping, the quote will include some wood replacement if needed. And then the rafters and the trusses should be in okay shape. They might need a little bit of repair, but.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions on this?
There it is. That's, hold on one second. So it's about 50,000. Odds are it would be about $50,000 for everything. Right?
Yeah, we're hoping it comes in. We did have some bids that were less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see when we go out to the bidding process where that falls. But actually the bids we got to develop the budget
Mm-hmm.
were actually less than that.
Okay.
Even with the Arrow cost for developing the budget document or the bid documents. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like it's necessary. And you guys have been doing a great job with your bids.
Thank you.
So,
Yep. We're ready.
No other questions from commissioners? Any questions from residents? I'm not sure if I saw a hand raised up there. Oh, no, I saw some action in the corner there. Oh, okay, all right. I didn't know if it was. So, entertain a motion to, for consideration, the PSA 0123-PC01, the Cowan Public Works Garage bid. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Evans. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's good, 5-0.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks to you. Kristen, I'm sorry to bother you. Can you promote me? Been wanting to get promoted since 5th grade.
You Mark, just Mark.
You are.
You know, I probably
You are a
am.
knight.
There I am. Yes, thank you so much.
All right, next we have Township Manager, Ms. Denny.
Yeah, before we go into some of the items that were on the agenda, two things that I did want to bring up is that the school district has officially hired a new superintendent. Would like to thank Dr. Dunlap for working with the township as well as he has. I think everybody who has worked with him here at the township, we can say he was just the consummate professional, really cared about the kids, put a lot of time in, did a lot of good, and considering he was there on an interim basis, he worked triple time for the school district, and just want to thank him for his time that he spent here. Also this week, the school district had released their facilities report, that they have been, I think there was 90 people that they had on this committee that they were looking at all of their facilities, and which ones are most viable to keep, and to look at consolidations and whatnot. What I will tell you is each of the options that were presented, Callan Elementary was to be closed in each option. So with that, what I would like to say is we may want to get ahead of this. You know, that is the back portion of that is connected both to the athletic fields that Callan Athletics use for baseball, and our park. This may be an opportunity for us to reach out to the school district to see before they would potentially put that property for sale in the next coming years, that we may want to look at a swap, a purchase, something, to keep that open space for the community.
Oh, so they own that whole property in the back
Basically
of the,
from there's the one athletic field, I believe, that sits partly there, but further down, like near the fire, everything behind Callan Elementary, they actually own that.
okay.
Yes.
Who is the new superintendent?
If you give me 2 seconds.
Dan Johnson.
I saw a press release today.
Dr. Van Voren.
Van Borg?
Van Voren. VANVOOREN.
Thank you so much. And I know during Lerda, when Josh and I would sit there for hours waiting until we came up at their meetings, we were discussing the amount of children that we could be seeing coming into the school district, especially with if anything happens, Cohen property and everything going on at my place, that perhaps they should have had one of us involved in their conversations. And maybe Josh and I can start a consortium to discuss this. It's not right. I mean, it would be great to have that land, but that school is important to this township, and it's also one of our historical resources.
We also
Thank
have the
you.
Willows, Mark, as well.
What's that?
We also have the Willows as well, you know, that could potentially
Oh, that's
increase
right.
the
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
enrollment there at the district level.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford to lose that school.
Ms. Denny, could you send out a welcome letter to
I
the new
will. This
superintendent?
literally was just announced today, so.
Okay.
So yes, I will absolutely.
Breaking news.
Yeah. But, you know, more importantly, I wanted us to be able to make sure we're aware of the facilities report, and,
Mhm.
you know, we kind of have always had an open, you know, use that part of the school district as an extension of our park,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, maybe we can draft, you know, the Board of Commissioners can draft up some sort of a response to this, you know, ranking,
Mhm.
pointing out
Already
where
put in.
there could be wrong and how we don't approve of it. If we don't approve.
Mhm.
No, I don't.
But that information, could you forward that to us?
I'm actually
Thank you.
doing that right now.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
We love to read.
Oh, yeah. Big readers.
Part of the job.
Both of those items have just been sent to me.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda is the discussion. There's 2 items regarding the draft zoning ordinance. One is we really need to get this moving again. We did, and I just received the paperwork today for the extension. So if I can have a motion from the board to authorize me to sign the paperwork for the extension, that would be the first item to knock off the agenda.
Entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved. Second. Moved by Commissioner Evans, second by Commissioner Young. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, good to go, 5-0.
The next, and I'm going to hand it over to the solicitor. She has an outline again for us to discuss. But we need to figure out, and, you know, how do we get this moving again? Where do we get this moving? What form are we going with? We really need to push on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed, we had 2 work sessions where we talked about the policy issues and some of the things that Ray, Kristen, and I saw as far as the ordinance that came out from the planner versus your existing code, and just some pointing out major differences really, and just, making sure that there was consensus on the board to go in the direction of the new ordinance. And my takeaway from those meetings were that, you weren't super comfortable with it. The one thing you were fine with was the parking, the way he proposes to do it. But that was really all I heard as far as being comfortable with the direction that it was going. So, and if I'm wrong, that's where we need you to correct us on that consensus. And then I guess just figuring out, what do we do? I don't feel comfortable melding or taking the comments from this policy outline and then trying to change what Ray Ott did. Because it's just, you're starting at two completely different places. And it's just it's performance based versus a very detailed regulation based, which is the way you are today. Neither one is right or wrong. They're just very different. So I know that we talked about that some of the focus of the board was that they wanted to really focus on Lincoln Highway and certain design standards, and that can be done easily, to be honest. You have a Lincoln Highway overlay, knowing, some of your, things that you'd like to see, that's pretty easy to add in. It sounded like you were pretty comfortable with the way the current residential zoning districts work and the regulations relating to residential zoning. So that can stay intact, but I guess we're just looking for guidance, knowing that 6 months will be here in a blink of an eye. How are we getting to a point where you have a document in front of you? And I agree with Mark that it's not how fast you get there, but unfortunately you're on a county time frame in order to get reimbursed. So if reimbursement isn't a concern, isn't an issue, then you can take as long as you want, and we can be at it for as long as you want and take it in, chapters. But if getting that county reimbursement is something that's important to the board, then we need to be aware of that 6 month extension. So it's really just opening it up now for thoughts and direction.
Thank you. I think one of the things that we needed to take a good hard look at was uses. I don't even have a chart in front of me. There's nothing in here, right?
Yeah.
That I wasn't expecting you to go into detail like that tonight.
Yeah, and I didn't expect this to be the detailed conversation. I mean, we're going to need another work session if
absolutely.
We're going
But
to need,
this
couple
is more
dozen
just
work session.
Yeah, this is more just what is your guys' thought on how we get to a point where we're at an ordinance that can go through a public hearing process for adoption. That's really the question we have.
So what some of the biggest issues are, he dealt a lot with design, the theories behind land use, right? And not so much like parking regulations and
It was
area and
really the
bulk
way
requirements.
it was more not, it wasn't defining uses, it was defining building types. And it was having a set of standards based on a building type, whether it's a residential building, a commercial building, an industrial building. And some buildings you can't always figure out, is it commercial, is it institutional, is it residential? Sometimes it's mixed. And it's depending on what district it is, just based on that, whether it's one of those broad categories, those area and bulk requirements are there. And it's, for example, along Lincoln Highway, you have this build to line. So right now you have buildings that are however many feet back, but in the new regulations, you must be, I don't know if it's 10 feet or 15 feet from the edge of the cartway, edge of the right of way. And it's, again, is that what you want? If it is, okay, that's fine. We'll go forward with that. But that, just trying to picture that and think that through.
Well, one of the things we tried in the overlay when we wrote it, Kristen, was less regulation. Like 0 lot lines.
And that's worked actually. Right. A lot of, mostly every applicant that has come in the Lincoln Highway overlay has utilized that flexibility to their benefit to be able to redevelop some difficult lots. So I feel like that has been a success as far as, I shouldn't say success, it served the purpose for which it was drafted. And that was to give the board that flexibility to not require applicants to go to the zoning hearing board because they had difficult smaller lots or developed lots that you were redeveloping.
I mean, the other thing I'm thinking down Lincoln Highway now. You've got the farmhouse. You got
Jefferson's.
Jefferson's, and then I think this month Appetizers closes. So you know, that lot's going to be up for sale, and that's a very difficult lot to design and build something on. So I'm just thinking require, and that lot, you know, if you make them put it right at the front of the building, I don't know that would work, because you'd literally be right on Lincoln Highway. You know, I don't know how that works, but I think the whatever we can do to make it more flexible, code wise with design standards, I think would be beneficial for Lincoln Highway, because we want to make it easier for people to redevelop the properties. Not
Yeah, I mean, I think the flexibility is in there. What's not in there is the design standards. And I think that today, most of your uses are by conditional use. And that's really something the board, as far as going through that use chart, is it something that you think really needs, for the farmhouse, for example, do we need to have a conditional use because it has a drive-through? That's a policy decision. Only you guys can decide that, you know? So, you know, to me, as you see, it brings with it a lot more expense. It brings a lot more time. It brings the possibility that a neighboring property owner or a competitor property owner doesn't want to see that come in, and they become a party, and there you go. You're 18 months, 2 years down the road, and however many thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's the kind of policy discussion that I think, I'm not sure you had the level of the task force in terms of the detail of every use. Like, again, and this is no criticism, this is just more pointing out differences. So today you have so many different uses, and for each use, you really have defined regulations. I mean, look at the daycare use. There's a whole section, 155-70, and they're and Ray and I've talked about it. I mean, some of them you don't need, right? Obviously, they need licensing by the state. You don't need to put that into your ordinance. Like, that goes without saying. You know, you don't have to regulate everything. There's other regulations that'll come into play. Your current ordinance is very repetitive. It repeats itself over and over and over and over again. We can cut back what's this thick. You know, we Ray and I have had these conversations. Like, we've identified sections as applications have come in that we think we can take from a 4-page regulation to a half-page regulation. But again, it's just, how do you want to go about doing it? So as far as Lincoln Highway, I think the flexibility is there already with your Lincoln Highway overlay in terms of area and bulk, parking, that kind of thing. But design standards, we would want to know what it is you're looking in terms of the look and the feel of it.
I think the other thing is conditional uses and uses, correct?
Yeah.
That we would need to determine those.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us sat down for probably 2 or 3 hours and went through your uses today and talked about like where we thought it was appropriate to put them in terms of what districts and what process to go through. But we want to make sure, I mean, we're not the policymakers. We gave our suggestions for what we thought, but that's something that you guys need to take a look at and tell us. And I think we went through some of that. You know, we got to some of that, but we didn't get into the level of detail where you're have an ordinance that you're ready to say, yes, we want to go ahead and advertise this. We're ready to adopt it. We feel comfortable with it. It's a very, as Mark said, it's a very important document. It's probably the most important one you have in the township, especially if you're looking to redevelop and encourage new businesses to come in. They're gonna, before they even put an agreement of sale together, they're gonna look at your codes. They're gonna look at your ordinances. They're gonna. I mean, I've heard it. I live in West Whiteland, and there was a time when people just did not develop in West Whiteland because their codes were too hard. And they knew that at every step of the way, they were going to be up against, you know, zoning hearing board fights and township fights and code fights. And people just walked away. I mean, clients told me not going to West Whiteland. So it's an important document to accomplish what your vision is. I just want to make sure that what was put together is what your vision is. Because I think in some ways it became so relaxed. It's definitely a balancing. It's a balance. You don't want to have over-regulation, but you don't want to have no regulation.
Like a single drive-through is potentially all right to not need conditional use. Double, triple drive-throughs.
Or the size of the restaurant, maybe.
Size.
You know, the size
yeah.
of the restaurant might dictate what the impact is.
I guess my only fear to that is that, you know, a farmhouse might not need a conditional use, but then you get a Chick-fil-A, and if you have no regulation.
But no Chick-fil-A is coming in right now with one
no,
lane.
but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you get one of those, and in the old Burger King, and now you got a traffic jam on 30 all the time. So I guess I'm just.
Yeah, but see, that's the other thing is that
And maybe
even without conditional use, you can have standards that the applicant has to demonstrate to the zoning officer they meet. It doesn't have to be at a public hearing process. They do that. If they can meet, and you have pretty strict commercial drive-through standards.
Okay.
The length of the queuing lane, the where the speaker is, how far away it has to be from a residential property. I mean, that can all be in there, but it's not, you don't have to demonstrate that as your conditional use criteria. You demonstrate that to the zoning officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one question, just, is this something we want to do as one single document, or can we piecemeal this and get chunks of it done?
Well, that would be a question for the county as far as the county reimbursement.
Like if we chunk off in February Lincoln Highway, and then we deal with,
historic. I mean,
historic,
yeah,
chunk
and I
that
think we're
off.
ready to go on the historic. Like
Right.
we've vetted that. You know, we're ready to cut and paste that in basically. So we would have to talk with the county on how that can be done, Kristen. But
Because I think because right now when you're saying this, you're talking about a document this big that you're trying to get me to digest. But if I can do sections
Right.
at a time,
yeah,
even if we just chunk it off, if they say no and we say, okay, now we're completed on this, and we'll focus on.
I agree with you. I guess my only comment would be, and Kristen, correct me if you feel differently. I don't know if you can accomplish that with the document that we have from Rayot now. And I'll tell you why, because we tried to look at it that way as we were going through it with a fine tooth comb. You can't, because what you do here affects everything else in the way that document flows.
but you could take your existing ordinance
Yes.
and say, okay, we want to focus on the highway. Let's add to what we have.
Mhm.
Or you could take, right now, you have, I think, a very short article on historic resources. And you have a historic district that's like within a certain feet of Edges Mill. We could just, repeal that particular article and chapter and bring in the historic resource ordinance that you worked on. So yes, you could do that.
Okay.
But I think your starting point is your existing ordinance. It's not going back to. And I think as long as you adopt, well, Kristen, yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not familiar enough with how the county would view that.
I'm looking at this right now, actually. I'm trying to draw up the contract. Another way to skin this is the historic ordinance can be its own ordinance. It doesn't have to be a part of zoning. And it actually makes it more burdensome to enforce because it has to be enforced by the solicitor versus internal staff. Just a thought. And it's semantics. I mean,
But you would take the same document and just make it an ordinance
A
versus
standalone chapter of
Standalone
your
chapter.
code. It doesn't have to be part of zoning.
which would
yes.
also make it easier to change too, correct?
Well, the only thing is that not much. I mean, the zoning ordinances have to go through a county planning commission review, and they just as far as there's still a public hearing if you changed. It wasn't a zoning,
Okay.
but it's the advertising is 1 week versus 2. So it's not
Okay.
just well, and that's not true. It also doesn't have to go to your planning commission. You could, if you wanted to, have your planning commission weigh on it, but you're not required by law.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen standalone historic resources, historic ordinances. That's just, there's some benefit because when you think of regulating use of land and characterizing and classifying, that's really a zoning purpose. So that's where sometimes it fits nicely there. But at the same time, that's not one size doesn't fit all. And I do know other municipalities that have it as standalones without, again, if you have a zoning officer, because putting it in zoning comes with it all of that the MPC requires of a zoning ordinance in terms of the zoning officer has to enforce it. If there's a violation, the zoning officer has to send a notice of violation that 100% complies with section 617 of the code. There's only one way to go about enforcing it, and that's the way the MPC says. So putting it in a standalone chapter gives you more flexibility about how you go about regulating, enforcing, fining, and appealing in the appeal process. So it's different, and that some people might say that that's a negative because there's a tried and true process in place in zoning that you're familiar with versus a standalone that you're sort of making it up, if you know what I mean. Not to say it can't work, but it's just different.
Yeah, I hate to make Ray's life any more difficult, and I know it is, but as the zoning officer, I know he's got way too much. He needs help, but I'd be a lot more comfortable if this was part of the zoning. Get it hardwired. I think that's what the whole intention was from the first spot, to get it hardwired into our zoning.
But I guess here's something to throw out. I mean, I feel confident that if we pinpoint the most key provisions you want to focus on, I think we know some of them: historic resources, some of the zoning map changes that we talked about, design standards for Lincoln Highway, and some of the nitpicky things that we think are hot topics that must be dealt with. Short-term rentals, we need to deal with that,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Food trucks. I know that sounds silly, but like these hot topics that we really don't deal with. Signs, and we actually have a sign ordinance. I mean, we worked on a sign ordinance for a long time. It never got to you guys because we got to where we were comfortable with it, and then we knew that the zoning process was going forward, and we said, we'll just insert it in. So we probably could give you, to your idea, Josh, 3 or 4 new articles that we could insert into your current code, and then readopt that all together, and that would probably be sufficient in terms of getting reimbursed from the county.
Well, wait, so I just pulled up the contract and the specific, it has to meet the requirements of Article 6 of the MPC. So now I'm pulling up the MPC.
Yeah, that's just being consistent with the purposes, what's allowed to be in a zoning code. So Article 6 deals with like Section 601 or 603, I think, says zoning ordinances shall do the following. So it's a very broad statement, and I'm comfortable that yours currently does that.
Right, but what Josh was talking about, doing one section at a time and submitting it to meet the grant requirements.
Yeah, no, I think what we would have to do is readopt the entire thing, but with these, say, 5 topics: historic resources, design guidelines for Lincoln Highway, signage. I mean, those are pretty significant changes, and I think that could be done.
But maybe if we can't do it and pass it chunk at a time, maybe internally in the next 6 months, we can chunk
work
it
on it
at
as a chunk at a
either
time.
each meeting or
Mhm.
have one,
I like that.
because I think trying to in one night talk about the entire zoning code, I think we're going to get lost in the weeds.
Yeah,
That-
and actually, I
that-
think
that wasn't the intention. Our intention is we want to get dates on and get this moving. is
Right.
where
I just think if we chunk off and do one night with.
well, and the other thing, I mean,
Yep.
this is up to you again. I know you had a task force before, but does the whole board, do you want to do it at a board meeting level, or do you want to have designated officials?
We
that-
may need to have additional meetings at this point because we're on a timeline.
Right, but what I'm saying is, do you want the entire board to be part of that meeting, or do you want to have designees that go and give direction? I don't know. I don't know what the thought process is.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to see the task force resurrected, and
Well,
board.
I don't think
involved.
that was the
Was
question.
that what you
No,
said?
it wasn't the
No,
task force.
no.
It was members
it-
of the board.
Oh,
This
okay,
board
gotcha.
A certain amount of members of our board would
Got
just
you.
get together and.
with staff, because then if it's not a quorum, it doesn't have to be at a public meeting.
Mhm.
Ultimately, whatever you do has to be adopted through a public hearing process. But what I'm suggesting is that we can work probably more efficiently if we have designees of the board meet with staff and myself daytime. It doesn't have to be daytime. You guys have jobs. I realize that. But I'm saying rather than, and you have so many other things on your agenda for your public meetings that it's tough to really give the sufficient amount of time that
Right.
is necessary.
I mean, if we did that, I think then we would, if we do it in what we're saying in chunks, then if we did that with 2 designees, we would then bring that section
Part back
back
to the board.
and do that at a public
Mhm.
meeting.
Yeah.
And then if everybody agrees, then we'll move on to
Move on to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So break down the topics. of
Okay.
what
Why don't we do that? Why don't
We need
yeah.
to tackle.
Okay, that sounds
Okay.
good. And I would ask you that if there's anything that we haven't talked about in these work sessions
Mhm.
that upsets you or disturbs you, or the best way to bring these issues to light is think about past applications
Mhm.
that have come before you, and sort of as you've applied what's in today's code, either you think, oh gosh, why do we require that, or why is that in there, or vice versa. Geez, I wish we had a standard that could have covered that. For example, the red brick. You know what I mean? I think it's best to know what you want or what you don't want when you see it being applied to a specific property. Or maybe you had a property owner.
Mhm.
Why the heck do I have to go through conditional use for one drive-through lane? Maybe somebody in the township has said that to you, and that's you, and then you've looked at it and said, oh, I agree. That could be something maybe we could change. So I would just ask you all to sort of think about that. And as we develop this list, I should definitely have this for you for the 26th. That we can go through it on the 26th and then hit the ground running in February. Does that work?
And see if we can break this down to about 3 months. Definitely less than 4 months. 'Cause,
Yeah. Well, we need time to have it go back to your planning commission,
that's exactly.
and then we need time for you to have a public hearing.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that's gonna take some time. And also the county planning commission has to review the entire ordinance. So that's a 30-day window. Might even be 45. So, okay, good.
Ms. Denny, is that what we need to do? Have the Chester County Planning Commission approve this within that 6-month period?
They just
Probably
review
adopt-
it and
They review it.
But
I
that's
think
all
it's
part of the
adopted.
6-month period? Okay,
Yeah. So I think that's a good
All right.
target to be done in about 3 months.
okay.
And then have it ready for them to review and you to be, by June, July timeframe, having your hearings.
how long is the advertisement for the public hearing? Is that a
14 days,
14 days?
14 and 7 days out.
Okay.
Yep. 2 times. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing we need to think about if there are, excuse me, if there are map changes, we have to send notice 30 days prior to the hearing to any property owners whose property is being rezoned.
Could we do this, do a timeline backwards?
Yeah.
So adoption date needs to be X
Yeah.
date.
Yep.
And
we can do that.
need 14 days plus we need 30 or 45 days.
We
for
can put
the-
together topics and a proposed timeline.
Yeah.
Very good idea.
One thing that came up, but it had come up earlier and then kind of went away a couple times, but in the last couple task force meetings that we were discussing was that the last time the zoning was written, was updated, the focus was on getting development, residential development in. And a lot of things were really loosened and widened up, and look, I wouldn't be living here if that hadn't happened, because, our house was built. But at the same time, we're at a point right now where Lincoln Highway is where all the action needs to be. And I'd really like to see some, not so loosey-goosey with the, bulk, what's it called?
Area and bulk.
Area
and
and
bulk.
bulk
Mhm.
in residential. I'd like to make that a little more. Things will change again, but right now we got serious stormwater issues. And the more we're digging in the ground and putting in developments, the more that's gonna be a problem. But we've got Lincoln Highway that's sitting there and has been sitting there, and there's been things done to already. That's where I'd really like to be focused with this zoning.
Very good.
All
Thank
right.
you. That's very helpful information. Mr. President, do you want me to stick around or am I?
I know we did have some residents
Oh.
that had hands raised. Mark, did you have your hand raised earlier?
Oh, no, that stinks.
You got your Eagle shirt on, that's okay.
Right.
Oh, that one's okay, but the stupid shoes. Anyway, just quick point is if you're doing it between the commissioners and the staff, where does the public come in or they don't get to know before the hearing?
Well, that's why I said, I think if we did that each chunk should come back to the board at a public meeting. We discuss that at a public meeting and then settle on that. And then there would be a public hearing for the whole
Okay.
zoning. I think we should come back to the board with each chunk of that, if we decide to move in that direction.
Okay, I didn't know if you're gonna include public in the meetings or that was what my real question was.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I mean, I'm not, it's not my thing,
Yeah,
kind of,
no.
but just wanted to ask.
Okay.
just to correct, I with some, all of the task force meetings before they kind of reached their end point were public. COVID kind of made it seem like they weren't, I mean, that's the other thing is that, we're looking at this project and we're going, well, what happened here? Well, what happened here was the world was upside down for a long
Yeah, I
time.
mean, it
so
was, it was a tough time to get something like
Yeah,
this project
so-
done. It was too hard. Yeah, there's no doubt about it that stymied it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And did we have a hand raised in Zoom world?
Ms. Spalding?
Yes, I'm almost asking the same question Mark did. I just want to be sure I understood the process. And you and Cam can say, so you extended for 6 months.
Yes.
At the end of 6 months, you have, or somewhere before the end of the 6 months, you have to have a hearing, which you advertise for 14 days and then again for 7 days. Within that 6 months, it will go to the Planning Commission, and also the Chester County Planning Commission will review it. Did I miss anything?
Correct. And what Josh was saying though is that as we identify the topic areas and the small working group is happy with a draft of say a chapter on historic resources, for example,
I'm having trouble. By the way, some of you are fading in and out for what it's worth.
Sorry, can you hear me now? I'm sorry, Cheryl.
That's fine. That's
Is
better.
that better?
Yeah.
I said, what Josh wants us to make sure we do, and the board agrees, is that as we have a very specific topic area, for example, historic resources,
Yes.
and I think we're pretty much there for that one, so that one will be easy, but we get that chapter, the working group is happy with it, it will be an agenda item on a Board of Commissioners meeting for them to review that particular chapter. The public will then be invited to provide comment on that, and we could make that chapter available on your website in advance of the meeting. And then we know that, okay, at least that particular chapter the board's comfortable with. They're not adopting it. They're just basically saying, yeah, we're comfortable with that. Let's set that aside and move on to the next topic.
Okay, but that will not be that's not a part of the 14.
No, that's not advertised as a hearing. That's just discussion on a proposed chapter.
Got it. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's all.
Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. You too.
Okay.
Yep, should finish that. I guess you're done for the evening. Yeah. Ms. Camp, thank you very much.
I have 2 words for you on the way out the door. Ice cream.
Ms. Denny, what do we have left on your agenda?
The last item, and I had sent an email to the board last week. I know Mr. Stackhouse also sent emails with concerns of issues we're running into. The EMS territories,
Yes.
you know, if need be, I have the resolution sitting in front of me and I can update it at this time, or you can give me the direction of how you want me to update the resolution and we can adopt it next meeting. It is completely up to the board how you wish to proceed.
Well, now presently, how it is written is Minquist covers our entire township for ALS,
Yes,
and the east side for the BLS, and the Washington hose covers the BLS only on the west side. And of course, we're split down Municipal Drive. That's how it's written today. I believe there's been some issues as far as some calls on the west side that we end up having 2 EMS services being dispatched to the homes. Can somebody clarify that? Because I think that has been an issue.
Sure. So by the nature of the way the ordinance is written, if it's Municipal Drive and towards Coatesville, and it's an ALS call, meaning they need a paramedic for that call, because of the way the ordinance is set up, Washington Hose Company, Coatesville, gets dispatched for the BLS side, and Minquist or Downingtown gets dispatched for the ALS side. The issue since January 1 is now that Coatesville is also designated as an ALS capable unit, Coatesville will get there and has been recalling Downingtown's ALS and taking the patient to the hospital. At
Is that-
first glance, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just quickly is that's not how our ordinance is written though, or our agreement.
That's correct. That's
So
correct.
are they improperly doing that then?
Well, it's not the way your ordinance is written, but that's how it happens. That's the downside when you have 2 services can provide the same service, the same exact service. Not quality wise, I'm not getting into that, but
I was just saying
the exact same service.
why are they doing that?
So, well, they're doing it because obviously they get there, they feel, hey, I can provide that service anyway. Why not just take the patient? On the surface, you know, I can see why some people would think that. The issue is twofold. Number one, since you designated Downingtown as the ALS unit for the entire township, obviously they already sent out fund drives to the entire township to be the ALS unit. That's one issue. The second issue is that Downingtown has developed a policy or a response mode to, handle ALS calls in the entire township. Coatesville going to those calls and taking those patients is basically the initial dispatch. It's taken 2 units out of service It's taking Downingtown's resources that they put here to cover the ALS, and they're just getting called off. So basically, they're spending money on staff and resources, and they're not recouping any of that because they're not being allowed to provide that service.
Well, that's a little irritating.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating for you. It's going to be frustrating for residents because it will continue to cause. We've already had calls about being a little confused. Imagine the frustration from an operational standpoint that it's creating for Downingtown.
Just so I was told by someone last week. Is this true or not? Is Washington Hose not full-time ALS?
Well, so there, once you're designated as an ALS unit, you're an ALS unit. By law, there's only a percentage, even BLS, by law, there's only a certain percentage of time that you can be out of service.
Mhm.
Basically, you have to be in service. If you drop below that percentage, you can get put on probation by the Department of Health, all those things. I have heard, I don't have the documentation, but I have heard that Coatesville has been out of service on occasions because they don't have the staff.
How long has Minquist been ALS certified?
Andrew,
2005. And how long has the Washington Hose been certified ALS?
less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days. And I had another. Of course, I had this great backup question, but I didn't write it down, and I'm old. I forget things. What other territories? I know the answer to this, but I can't remember. What other territories besides town does Washington Hose serve?
Coatesville City.
Wonderful. I'm not saying we need to make any decisions tonight, but you know, I would be very comfortable staying with the ALS service that's been doing this since 2005, and give Washington Hose a year to you know, so we have some evidence that they've got this down before we start thinking about changing anything.
My only comment to that, maybe you already understand. You understand if the only way to do that would be to designate Downingtown both ALS and BLS provider for the entire township.
Are they capable of doing that?
So I agree with your email that I think that at this point, now that they're ALS certified, we were, when we approved this, we were in a different place because they were only BLS certified. We either need to redivide the township or we need to have somebody cover the entire township, in my opinion. And since Andrew's here, if we were to move forward, and let's say we appointed Minquist, BLS, and ALS, those people that have joined Washington Hose under the impression that they were covering the township, would you honor those memberships for those people? Yes, please.
In answer to that question, yes, we would honor their membership, regardless of if they subscribe to us or subscribe to Washington Hose, especially in light of all the unknowns and misinformation that may be out there in regards to EMS in the township.
Very good answer. I am a strong believer of creating relationships with our EMS as well as fire, any service that helps out this township. So I know we have an option, either go back to the old way where we're splitting the township, or possibly go with a new way where we just have one EMS service for the entire township. So I don't think we need to make the decision tonight. I think we all just need to chew on that because it is a large decision. Just so everyone understands, Washington Hose does rent a space behind Giant with I guess their intention several years ago, this is where that all started from, is to be able to take care of Count Township. And I believe they still have 5-10 years left on their lease.
Yeah, I'm not positive.
Unfortunately, business is business, and that was a business decision. You as well had moved into Thorndale Fire Company. What do you just have a trailer in the back there?
We do. We have a trailer and a couple bunk rooms.
Oh, okay, okay. Not, I guess not as permanent.
Not as permanent, but it is a conversation piece, long range with the fire company to sprucing it up there, because I'm sure the trailer's not exactly the best thing to see back there, but
Mm-hmm.
it works for right now.
And as long as it's working for us. Commissioners, any other comments?
Thank you for coming out to every meeting and building a relationship.
Welcome.
Really.
Okay, no other comments?
Good.
All right.
No, I think we should,
Yeah.
we should make a decision sooner rather than later, but
Yeah, we're not gonna wait, 6 months or a year, but next meeting, I
Yeah.
definitely want to have this done and over with, because we do need to forward this to the county as well, right, Ms. Denny?
Mhm.
Correct.
So next meeting, we all come prepared. Jane, you got that?
Yes, I do.
Right.
Excellent.
The commissioners have no other questions. I can ask residents? Oh, there is?
Ms. Spalding?
Hi, this is a subject about which I've been working, investigating, because I posted on the Callan Watch page what I thought was correct, and I was corrected by a couple people, and so I finally went back and talked to, might have even been you, the chief of Minquist, and then reposted what I believe is correct, and then was told it was correct. And so, I really would encourage you to go, this is just my personal feeling, but I will tell you that in talking to a lot of people about this, because most people do not understand what's happening with these broken up systems, to have one person to go to for the whole township, I think will be far less confusing for everybody. And certainly the ambulance part where I've joined, Minquist Ambulance, others want to know. What I didn't realize, and this is kind of scary to me, particularly, if Coatesville's running into Thorndale to pick up people, I would think that's a legal issue, which you could simply have your lawyer notify them, that they're breaching whatever agreement you have. But there are other townships. I have family who live further west than here, who are not well, about whom I'm very concerned, because the trip from their house to Chester County Hospital could be life-threatening. And what I discovered recently, and I have not confirmed this, I will tell you, I need to confirm this, was that in the Parksburg area, for instance, they don't have an AOS service at all. They have BOS only. Now, clearly, if the 911, person's going to call, they're going to find an AOS ambulance if necessary. But these systems are getting very convoluted. And I think it would be to our benefit as a township to have less confusion. And the least confusion is simply one organization. I'm sorry for Washington Nose, but it's like
What's
one way
best
or
for
the
the
other.
township? That's what
I'm
we're
sorry.
looking for. No, exactly where you're going with this. What's best for the township?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry for them, but I think for the people who live here and for the people who have to rely on these services, one service is really, people don't understand. They can't deal with all that. And having two, I can't imagine, what do you do when you've got somebody in your house with a heart attack and two ambulances show up and both of them want to take somebody? Can't imagine. It's just not the time to make things confusing. So for what it's worth, I think from what I'm hearing from the people who did come back to me on Callan Watch, they really, the less confusion, the better. It's already too confused.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And just as another side note too, if Minquist has a call, they're not able to make it, it does go to, what is it, AVL, which could be Washington Hose, it could be East Whiteland who's driving by, it could be anybody else. But the first call would be going to Minquist if we went with just them for the entire township. All right. Any other discussion for that? All right. Next on the agenda, we have a couple more ordinance and resolutions to consider. Excuse me. First one, excuse me, request for consideration to adopt the resolution 2023 2022-01, resolution adopting the revisions to the 2022 ski schedules of fees for administration and inspections performed by township staff relating to building permits, zoning permits, land development, subdivision, stormwater, and any other permit required by the township code. Commissioners, did you all have a chance to fall asleep on this? 'Cause that was a lot to read.
My note here was, you know, it was as I was falling asleep, but I did write down that, I know we had discussed this, we didn't, at one point, I was really kind of hoping we were gonna raise the commercial vacancy fee to $500 instead of $250. Cause it's, $250 is pretty cheap. I mean, it should probably be $1,000, but.
I believe there was a limit. I thought that's what was discussed last time.
I be honest with you, I did not remember the conversation. I do now that you
We've had
brought
a
it
few
up.
conversations, I
Um,
don't tell you that.
I don't know if there was a limit. I mean, I would have to ask the solicitor,
Yeah,
if there is a limit. I have no problems raising it to whatever you want, obviously. So I certainly, we can continue, because there was almost no changes except for the pavilion rental. So we could wait to adopt this at your next meeting, and I can definitely check on that if that was the only question, or if there's any other questions, then we can put it back on the agenda. Because until it's changed, it just goes as is anyway.
Mhm.
And there's,
Just one suggestion, resolutions don't have to be advertised.
Mhm.
It might be better for us to just adopt this and amend it than take it off the agenda.
oh yeah, we could, and then we could just put it right
Yeah.
back on at the next meeting.
Yeah, you just.
Yeah, it's
put it back
easier
on.
to amend
Okay.
a resolution than table, it just makes life easier for everybody.
excellent.
So if that was the only thing, I mean, I'll definitely check into that.
Yeah, that was the only thing. I mean, like I said,
Maybe it's when you were asking for $5,000, not $250.
it's 22,300, but, I'd be, I mean, look, 1,000 would be great.
Mm.
I think it would encourage people to
Do something else
do
with the
something.
property.
So I'd like to see if that's something that could be kicked around.
Okay, yeah, Miss Denny, just reach out to Miss Camp. Find out about that.
Thank you, Ray.
Sure.
Thanks.
All right, questions from the residents? None here at the township, any? Okay. Entertain a motion to, adopt resolution 2023-1, as I've already read.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Evans. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's good, 5-0. Second request, consideration to adopt resolution 2023-02, a resolution adopting the annual trash and recycling fees.
Can I just read in here, effective March, starting with the the bill due March 25th. The sewer fee will be raised $1 every 2 months, so that's 50 cents a month.
Mm-hmm.
And the trash rate will go up $7 on a bi-monthly basis, so that is $3.50 a month.
Right.
Not saying that that's not a lot of money, because I'm telling you, things are tight for me right now, and it's a lot of money. But at the same time, we knew that the trash fees could be going up, and I've seen some chatter out there that when we changed providers, we just went with the cheapest bid, and that, we didn't take in, everybody's raised their rates. It's not just who we're working with right now. This is no way to get around this. And so,
There was a period of time where we made money off of the recycling,
yeah,
and that stopped, what,
Yeah.
about 2 years ago?
It's been longer than that since
Oh, has it?
we actually made money. I mean, we used to, when I first got on the board, we made $15 to $20 a ton on recycling, and now we pay, what is it, $15 a ton, Kristen, to get rid of it. It's still cheap in the landfill because it's $72 a ton to dispose of it. We also bid at a high gas and wage price, which we don't have any control of. We can only do a 3-year contract. There's been massive consolidation in the trash industry, and even I'm sure people have just read that our trash hauler was sold to a bigger trash hauler. So it's consolidating even more to several, a handful of very large companies that control that trash industry. And we have done everything we can. We're burning through our reserves to make sure that the increase was as small as possible. Well, Paul and I worked really hard to try to get that rate to as low as it can be. Unfortunately, it's just the time that we bid it, the consolidation in the industry, and really recycling is costing us money now. It's still less than the landfill, but it costs us money where it used to make us money.
This might be a good time to bring this up. We get in the mail every year, every one of us, this little flyer that tells us what's recyclable, what's not recyclable. There was a time I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but then when I started seeing how it affects the cost of everything, I started paying a lot of attention to it. A lot of the things that made sense to me, are not recyclable. And then I spoke with Abby, who actually did a tour of the recycling facility and explained to me how all this works. Like, I was buying, still buy, the clear recyclable bags. Well, if I put that bag in my trash can and it gets to the recycling place, it goes right out and into the landfill. They don't open it, quote unquote. Have you ever opened a bag with, baby diapers in it, in August? So now I take the bag out, I dump it into my recycling bin. Broken glass can't go in a recycling bin. Styrofoam can't, plastic can't. If we all just take a moment and be as anally annoying as I am becoming, maybe we could get to the point where we're making money on it again. And we could actually
reduce our costs.
And save
Yeah.
our land. I mean, it's just all the stuff going in there.
It's just being a responsible resident. That's all it is. Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I, we always have that flyer up because it comes from Scott,
Yeah,
but we hang it up on our refrigerator.
yeah, because I forget.
'Cause I forget. Yeah. What can we actually recycle?
And to put the period on the sentence, I know Commissioner Young had mentioned that our hauler Blazinski had been purchased by a bigger one, but they did commit that they were going to honor the contract as it was. So
What do we have? 2 more years?
I don't know. Do we have a year left, Miss Denny, or
1 year.
1 year.
Oh, just this year?
Yeah.
So at the end of this year, we're rebidding? Time flies.
When you're getting old, yeah.
Wow.
It's-
is it the end of this year or end of next year? I think it's the end of next year.
I thought yeah. So it'd be 2 years
No, it's this year and next
and
year.
next year. Okay.
So we have to bid like mid-year next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have 2 years left on it?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Scott's shaking his head. I know it.
Well, with all that,
All right. So please recycle
yes.
responsibly. Yes, Mark. Come on up.
The way the order of business was handled on this one. We're approving it tonight, but you already notified the residents before, so the decision was made before the residents could have any input at all on the trash and recycling. You're notifying people, communicating, which is great,
Mhm.
but the order of communications may have been better. And just to point out another thing, because I'll just let it go with that. But I was a person that put something on social media.
Mhm.
I look at 2 things on social media: Count Township's website
Mhm.
and Count Ozone Township.
Mhm.
That's it. I don't do Facebook. I don't do any of the other ones. But to sit here and have my fellow residents that are listening by Zoom or how they're listening, be accused that they had nothing better to do than troll the internet. That's not the first time, Mark. Calling me a troller, I'm not a troller.
Well,
So you've been
Mark, I don't think I addressed you.
Let me
but-
finish, please.
Go, please.
So you called me a name.
No, I did not, Mark.
Well, you called the citizens names. Trollers isn't a name. We can agree on how the English language works. I think it's improper for you to do it over and over again.
Thank you, Mark. Can I ask you a question? when you get home tonight or tomorrow, when you go on Caln Watch again, are you going to take your statement down or correct it and say, I was wrong when I posted that they already sent a bill out to us with
can
the
do that.
increase? Thank you. We had a couple months where social media was really good.
But I,
Listen, we're all part of this thing here. Send me an email, ask me a question. I'll answer it. We can work together to make sure everyone's aware of everything instead of a big scene.
But if
and-
someone
Go
gets
ahead.
to you,
Mhm.
reaches out to you, like you say.
Yeah.
The only two people are gonna know it out of all Count Township is me and you.
Actually, no, because I'll have it I'll put it on my thing saying, hey, I got this question. Here's
I
the
never
answer.
even looked at your site. Never trolled your site, so.
Well, actually, you did when well, we don't have to get into it, but when I was
Okay, all right.
complaining about 322, the change, the PennDOT change, but that's okay. Listen,
I remember
we
what
just
talked
want to
about.
make sure everyone's getting the right information and that everyone's getting mad about the right things. Like our school taxes keep going up.
I understand. but it's
You
our
know,
market.
these are the sort of things for us to be upset about, making sure that we have our emergency services. That's all.
I get it. But, will you come out and apologize for calling people trollers?
Actually, I will stay to this, that people who are going out there and spreading misinformation, they're whatever they are, I said trollers in there.
Good.
I did. And I don't have a problem with that. I apologize if anyone's feelings are hurt by that.
It's
But,
not feelings, it's
yeah.
the correct way of handling it.
well, thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments,
Yeah.
Mark. And Mark, just to reiterate, the sewer bill and the trash bill, I believe when it was sent out in the beginning of the year here, there was an insert that kind of broke down that,
Yeah, kinda like-
oh, okay, everybody got that. And that's really designed so, if you have automatic deposits or, withdrawals, you can set up your bank because the next bill coming out in March
Yep.
would actually have the increase.
Exactly.
So, but I see your point there. We're here tonight. We're actually finalizing it. But of course, the bills went out, in the beginning of the year
Yes.
for December and November.
I got
So-
mine last
And,
week.
and just one thing, we are setting the fee, and I understand where you're coming from, but the budget was what, basically set the fee, because the revenue versus expenses were in
Yeah.
that. So that's where we had, by passing the budget that we passed, we almost have this fee set. But I get where you're coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
I hope your foot feels better.
Was it a golf incident? Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
So we need a motion and a second to.
Okay,
So
do we have
moved.
any other questions?
Oh.
No? Okay. All right, entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2023-02.
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by
Oh.
Jane, were you seconding or thirding or?
I was trying to get a second in there.
Okay, yeah, Lorraine beat you to it, so, Commissioner
Okay.
Evans and second by Commissioner Tendero, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's good, 5-0. Moving on to the Finance Department, excuse me, we have some, a general check run, 49,403 to 49,495. Commissioners, any questions on those? I don't think I had anything circled. If not, entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by
Hey,
Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Kennedy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's good, 5-0. Approval of the December 22nd Board of Commissioner minutes. Commissioners, any questions?
Denise, I try to, you almost never make any mistakes. I try to get them to you in advance, and I was remiss in that. On page 10, paragraph 5, I believe it should read Commissioner Mullen asked for a motion. And on page 12, there's a vote that went down as 4-0. I think it should have been 5-0. There's only one vote I thought that night that was 4-0, and that was the one that I voted Against.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a 4-0.
I'm sorry. Minutes.
I see
page.
the 4-1.
It's after that. Sorry. Here we go.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
This is page 89 of our packet.
Page
Oh,
12.
12
yeah.
page. Okay. Oh, somebody,
4-0.
who abstained? I abstained
Okay, there you go.
because I was not part of that.
There. No.
Good catch, though.
I should know better with Denise. Denise is
She's on it.
she's on it.
There was one comment I had. Page 14 up top. I kept rereading it. I didn't make sense of it, but he and Mr. Stackhouse conducted a site visit where they could adequately accommodate her and make proper placements of handicap sign. And then Chief Elias Lease also noted that it is a township street. So I don't know what the word lease is in there for.
Yeah, I think.
Now, if you were doing, hey Siri, Siri would be doing that. Oh, sorry, Siri. The phone started. Okay. So I would just remove the word lease. It was just a typo. Commissioners, any other adjustments?
No.
All right, entertain a motion to approve minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Commissioner Tindaro, second by Commissioner Kennedy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion's good, 5-0. Acknowledging the commission approved minutes, oh, we don't have those.
Mm-mm.
All right. Oh, okay, the meat and potatoes of our meeting, board and commissioners, commission's updates. We'll start out with Park and Rec. Ms. Kennedy. Okay.
We didn't have a meeting, this month, so I don't have any new updates.
Okay, COG.
Our last meeting also was, attended at the, restaurant there, King's Tavern. So we ended the year on a basically social note with ideas and visions for 2023. So that's how we ended the year.
All right.
So no new business there.
Okay. Sounds good. Municipal Authority. I have a couple things to bring up. On January 3rd. No, I'm sorry. CTMA was notified by PAWC that it was granted their proposed sewer rate increase on December 8th, 2022. PAWC is where we send some of our sewage over to Coatesville. It's only a small portion of our township, but it does affect us. The new usage charge will be $14.50 for every 1,000 gallons, whereas the current usage is $9.64. So that basically was a 50% increase they were able to get from PUC.
And what's it at Downingtown? 250?
Yeah, that's a huge difference. That's why we try to send as much of our liquid waste to Downingtown, because of the cost savings there. PAWC indicated that the rate request was driven by more than $1.1 billion that Pennsylvania American Water will have invested in the water and wastewater system improvements through 2023 to continue providing safe and reliable service. Coatesville is going to be hit hard. So, all right, just to give you an example, we're estimating it may cost us an additional a little over $300,000 for the year for treatment over at PAWC. So I think we're ready for it, but still this might affect us in the future. Just keep everyone updated on that. CTMA, at their December meeting, adopted Resolution 2022-7, establishing the sewer rates, as we spoke of earlier. That's the sewer bill you got. And our I&I program, we're getting to the end. It's good. And basically what the I&I is infiltration in our main sewer system, our main pipe coming down the center of our township. So we're trying to seal it up so we're not taking in rainwater and any other type of water, because you're just treating rainwater for free. Well, it costs us money. So anyway, the CTMA at their December meeting awarded the 2023 Count Interceptor Phase 5, that's our last phase, repair project in the amount of $158,493, and that's for the base bid price. We do have an alternate number 1 and I think an alternate number 2. No, I think it's just alternate number 1. But that should finish off our pipe, and then we're going to go back and just tidy up some other areas as well. But it's been a long, 5-year process going through this. All right, and as far as the DARA board, future expansion, we're still hoping for that. Still. DARA stated that all the member municipalities are continuing to finalize their Act 537 plans. Count Township has already done ours. With Hurricane Ida, the application for the financial assistance is still under review by FEMA, and that's for the Downingtown, for DARA's pipes. Their capital program, I&I program, they are working on their 42-inch segment of Downingtown Interceptor that runs through the Downingtown Borough. So they're doing the same thing as us. And they are noticing a reduction in their flows. So it's helping out the system. And the budget was adopted in 2023, for the 2023 at the November meeting. Right. Fire board, that's me. We met December 8th. As of December 8th, we still have not had the 2021 audit done. So I'm hoping for some progress. I will say they were disappointed that no increase was adopted for the fire budget, but we're still in talks with that. And we are working on the township agreement. There are just some minor things that Kristen and Ray and myself want to work out with the fire board. And we should, I think Ms. Denny is doing a doodle poll, is that how you call it? So we can all get our meeting together and finalize that part of it. Nothing else for the fire board. Next is Historical Commission.
Yes, the Historical Commission last met on Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. We had a quorum of members as well as a few guests, both in person and on Zoom. We heard from all our subcommittees and reviewed comments and suggestions received from the November 12th Spackman Davis Farm event. We also reviewed our final budget report and minor changes made to the historic resource document. We mainly focused on a review of our activities and accomplishments in 2022, as well as goals we fell short of. Parameters were set for drafting our 2022 annual report to the Board of Commissioners, which should be submitted to the Board of Commissioners by the end of January. I found, I don't know about the other commissions, but I found in Chapter 19 that established the Historical Commission, there's supposed to be an annual report filed every year with the Board of Commissioners. So if you're out there and you're heading any of the other commissions, take a look and find out, because otherwise we'll be calling. We also discussed our invitation to apply for the 2023 Chester County Planning Commission and Chester County Historical Preservation Network Walking Tours Program. We agreed to ask for Board of Commissioner approval to apply. Since the deadline to apply tomorrow is before our next Historical Commission meeting, we approved a draft to submit pending Board of Commissioners approval. The Historical Commission's next scheduled meeting will be next Wednesday, January 18th. Meetings are hybrid, so you can join us right here live or from home on Zoom. We're doing big things, and accomplishing big things needs lots and lots of help. Please consider joining the Historical Commission to make our past a real part of our future.
Okay. All right, next, Lincoln Highway.
So I don't have a huge update, but since we last talked about it, myself, Mark, and Adam did meet to talk about Lincoln Highway standards and what zoning should look like for Lincoln Highway. So we were actively working on that. Goal for this year is to reconstitute the committee.
Okay,
And now
good.
that we have LERTA in place, I should say, since we last met too, LERTA has been approved by the county, and we have updated all of our applications now to include LERTA on the applications, and that started January 1st. So we are ready to go with any LERTA applications as of today, or as of January 1st. And so reconstituting committee and working with Ray. Now that we have once we get the zoning in place, we have the committee back in place. Now we need to talk about, we're dangling a carrot in front of you now. If you're not willing to improve your property and just leave it board up, what we're going to do with that. So, and that'll be something we'll task the committee with, working with Ray with.
Indeed.
For the golf meeting will be held on Monday, January 23rd, 5:30 p.m. at the golf course. We took a vacation at the December meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Did we have a hand raised there?
Yes. Mrs. Spalding?
Yeah, Cheryl.
I was just going to ask about the golfing because it wasn't on there, but I would ask that at the next meeting, since that's going to be really their first report of the year, would you please present the year-to-date income and expenses for September, October, November, December, and for the year?
Okay. You just want the year-end results?
I have the results from January, from your accountant, January through August. Then I have projected from September to December. I'd like actuals from September to December, then year end.
Mrs. Spalding, it would be easier if you filed a right to know request for this.
I can do that.
Yeah, that would be an
It
easier
seemed
way.
like,
Yep, that would be easier for them to run the reports that way.
okie dokie.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Seems silly, but I'll do that. Yes, thank you.
All right. All right, on to additional business. And we have a couple couple folks that we want to reappoint. Don't see anyone in the audience, so.
Maybe
Okay.
they don't want to be
Well, we have Kathy Callahan. We all know Kathy Callahan
Yes.
for the Historical Commission to reappoint her 2023 to 2027. Commissioners, any questions on that?
Just a question. Can we do this as one motion with all the people, or do we need individual motions for each individual person?
What is, I don't mean to say consent agenda, but you could definitely
Like
say,
an omnibus.
yeah.
Or just do one for all, and we'll read off the names. We have George Chambers with Municipal Authority, which I believe our authority board did recommend him again. We have Michael Irwin for the Planning Commission. We have William Shue for the Planning Commission for the same term, 2023 to 2026. They're only 3 years.
There's some
Is that
there
4
that are
years?
for 2.
It depends, because sometimes people get staggered, they're fulfilling,
Okay.
so it's, all of them are different.
Okay, and then Stephen DePedro for the Zoning Hearing Board. Any questions on these reappointments?
Kathy Callahan did express to the Historical Commission she wanted to stay on.
it would not be an historical commission without Kathy.
This is
Kelly.
true. This is true. So
Right.
I'm glad she has said she's
Yes.
decided to stay. Have we heard from the other individuals, whether they're interested on staying?
I had
on
to
or not?
twist George's arm, you know,
All right,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Uh,
No, he definitely wants to be part of this.
How about Michael Irwin, Planning Commission?
Yes, both planning commission members, it was brought up at the planning commission meeting, their terms were getting ready to expire and asked them and they were more than willing. And Mr. DePedro, same thing, we did reach out to him to make sure that he was committed. And he attends almost all the time when we have a hearing.
Okay.
Before we vote on these, I know there's a couple of applications for the Historical Commission that came in November, and I think there was a zoning hearing board application that came in November. If we can try to get wheels rolling again and get some, I know we had
Yeah.
2 meetings in the last couple months of the year, and we were trying to do a million things, but,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Ms. Denny, you can recirculate those, because we're probably lost in our emails. All right, well, as far as the 5 names that we've chosen, any issues with them? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the reappointments of all 5.
So moved. Second.
second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Evans, and third by Commissioner Tindaro. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yeah, that's 5-0. Congratulations, everyone, and thank you for your time and service.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome back. for Another go around.
Next, we have the Historical Town Tours, Farm and Agriculture. Commissioner Evans, you want to take the lead on this one? I love the packet. It was beautiful. I love the pictures. And it sounds like it'll be a great thing to get involved in. So if you can just enlighten us a little bit more.
Boy, I love the way you kicked that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chester County Planning Commission and Chester County Historic Preservation Network have invited the County Historical Commission to apply to be part of their 29th year of this wonderful program. This would bring attention to our township's rich history, its historic resources, and attract visitors who could spend some of the historic tourism dollars at our local establishments. The series runs in the summer. It's on Thursday nights from June 8th through August 17th. And there's only 7 spots remaining though, because a couple of them are already committed to other townships. So we would get one of those dates if we are selected. Between 5:30 and 7:30, people would come to hang out. And I guess I should have mentioned in here that Spackman Davis Farm is the perfect host for the walk, especially considering that it's their theme this year is agriculture heritage of Chester County. That's the wrong sheet of paper there.
Use mine.
No, I have that one. I had another cheat sheet here somewhere. There it is. So yeah, what we'd want to do is Spackman Davis Farm is a living example of our agricultural history. The corn will be high. Story of how farms, mills, and taverns developed around Beaver County, around Beaver Creek will be on display. Hopefully we'd be able to open the first floor of the bank barn and the open door at the 3-story spring house. Do some reenactments of early 19th century farm life. And include a map guide of other nearby historic resources, including the Edges Milling District. And the whole thing could end at Beaver Creek Tavern right around the corner, which is part of this whole thing. I would suggest that if we're going to go for it, that we would request. Did I put down those dates with you guys? What ones we should
Yeah, there were
request?
dates.
There are 2 dates.
Or was that part of the email?
Oh, August
Yeah.
17th, which is the final one, or July 20th, to ensure that we have time enough to prepare. I know that the Historical Commission keeps growing and everyone would be throwing everything they have into it. I believe that the Old Town Historical Society, Dawn, raise your hand if I'm lying, would be interested in throwing their weight into it. And I think it would be a great opportunity here. Considering that it was like 32 degrees and windy the day we did the event at Spackman Farm a couple months ago, the turnout we had and the interest that kicked up in Chester County's, you know what I'm trying to say. Lisa Marie Presley died. Anyway, I just think it would be great. You know, they were asking if there were any, how we affected the growth of farms in the county.
In the past, the historical end of it.
Spackman Davis Farm was one of the earliest working farms in Chester County, helped spawn its growth as a leader in agricultural production. The entirety of Cown nearly was once farmland. It produced crops, dairy, field crops, dairy, livestock, including the largest chicken farm in PA and the first electric farm. Edge's Mill in Cown was one of the few U.S. mills to use local crops for flour. It's fairly evenly split between subsistence farming and products grown for market. And since Cown is half the midway point between Philadelphia and Lancaster, the Kings Highway and Lincoln Highway became crucial routes for transporting goods both west and east. In fact, the Wildcat Inn and Gallagherville Inn and Black Horse Inn were there providing for travelers at the time. What do y'all think?
Mark, just one comment. I'm not sure what those dates are, but what days of the week, but Beaver Creek Tavern is closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
They're Thursday night.
Okay, perfect.
And the only reason that I was suggesting them is they're very close and they still have a lot of they still look very much like the historical time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they weren't closed when you were
Okay,
planning
so,
on doing something.
and this is just a 2-hour tour. They would come to Spackman Farm. We centralize a certain area that they would actually look at.
Exactly.
That's safe.
Yes,
We're still working on this project. We're still
we're still working on
the property.
This woods. What remember when Paul Stevens did what it was like to live on a farm
Oh, okay.
that day.
Mhm.
Kind of like, well, over here would have been doing this, and over here would have been doing this, and I'll have like me and Don Coughlin running around in period costumes.
Oh, yeah. With a musket.
With your electric guitar.
And my electric farm. I'd
You
also
got a tractor.
ask the Jefferson guys to come on down because they all worked there. Their family worked at Zinn with the Zinns and at Ingleside and at Spackman
Oh, wow.
Davis. So
Okay. Now, once you submit it, when would you actually know if we're accepted? Because
we might not be. I mean, there's a lot of townships with real agricultural bases, but we do still have 2 working farms in this township, which is so I don't know.
Okay.
But
well, it's worth a shot. I believe it's worth a shot.
Awesome.
Notification or let everyone know about Count Township. So commissioners, well, let me ask, any residents have any questions about this before we take a vote? None on Zoom World? All right, well, commissioners, I will entertain I guess a motion to approve the historical commission to apply for the historic town tour and farm and agricultural, however you want to put that. Walking tours.
Town tour. Town
Thank
tour.
you. All right.
So moved.
So moved. Moved by Commissioner Kennedy, second by Commissioner Tindaro. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right, motion's good 5-0.
Thank
Get
you.
that paperwork in tomorrow. Let us know how
Got it
it
all
goes.
ready to go. All
right.
right. Thank you. Thank you all.
Next thing we have, acceptance of a resignation from a probationary patrol officer Montgomery, and this will be effective January 5th, 2023. Commissioners, we all have the resignation letter in our packet. Any questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved. Second, moved by Commissioner Young, second by Commissioner Tindaro. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's good, 5-0. Thank you very much, Officer Montgomery, for your service.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, public comment. I know it's getting late, but we're always here. We'll stay as long as you want. Kristen might not, but we will. All right. Any comments on Zoom World? Nothing?
I've got a comment. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Dennis Given, who I see is here. I used to work for him. He's a so welcome. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, that's actually a good. We have what, 12 folks? Well, 9.
That's who's left. We had 17 at midpoint of this.
Oh, okay,
meeting,
good.
So, excellent.
Yeah. Word out. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
And we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Yes, me.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a
you.
good night.